If you have a hard time with boundaries, how might your life be different if you could say no as easily as a joyful yes? I'm Love Coach Mariya, and for over a decade now, I've been encouraging folks to empower their compassion so it's big enough for ourselves as well as others, and so our boundaries can become healthier than ever. You're listening to Empower Your Compassion, and on this show, we'll be unlocking transformative insights to help you reconnect to your true yes, so you can say no from that more expansive energy and get more of what you want in your relationships and your life without sacrificing your compassion. Are you ready for more love? Let's grow. Hello, my brave warriors of love. This week, I am delighted to welcome back to the show my friend and former client, Alina Prax. She is a fellow entrepreneur, the mother of a remarkable college-age daughter, and a recovering people pleaser, as well as many other wonderful things. Alina, oh my gosh, thank you so much. Welcome back to the show.
I am so happy to be here because I love spending time with you and talking about these things.
Absolutely. And I'm also delighted to welcome back my first repeat guest as we continue to discuss all of these wonderful topics. So for this episode, you had a special request. I had actually shared a bit of content with you and you were like, we should do an episode about this. And that piece of content was about what they called toxic empathy. And I actually don't really like using buzzwords like toxic and narcissist because they're just really emotionally charged, and getting that emotional triggering activated can sort of disempower us and like distance us a bit from our power of choice. We become much more reactive than responsive. So I'm going to continue to do my best for as long as I can to avoid using those kinds of buzzwords in my business and my marketing. But the concept, nevertheless, is essentially, so I talk about empowered compassion, empowering our compassion so it's big enough for ourselves as well as others. And the thing is they balance each other really well, because if you're all compassion and no empowerment, or we could say all empathy and no boundaries, you're just going to get walked over. And that's kind of what this toxic empathy is about. But on the flip side, of course, if you're like all empowerment and no compassion, then that's kind of what I talk about with the spiked walls. You end up just walling yourself off from love and connection with anyone. So that's why I think that they support each other really well. You empower your compassion. But I would love to know what came up for you when you saw that, little bit of content about basically these kinds of relationships where our counterpart is having some really faulty coping mechanisms that are coming off effectively abusively. And as really compassionate, empathetic people, we understand why they're behaving this way. We can tell ourselves that we know it's not personal. We can feel for them. We know that hurt people, and we can even sort of protect ourselves from being hurt and just see that the hurt that we're feeling is actually them and how much they must be hurting. And it brings out this like nurture, caregiving part of us. It's just like, man, you're so broken. I know that you're taking out on me because you don't know any better, but I also know that you do love me. And I do believe that you're worthy of love. And, I don't really want to like abandon you. So I'm just going to continue to take this shit because what else am I supposed to do? What was it about that content though that made you want to talk about it?
Okay, there's a lot to unpack there. Let me pull on one thread. Going back to the buzzword of the toxic empathy, I think that could show up in a lot of different ways, or we could use a lot of different terms, I think, to kind of describe the same thing. For example, people who are chronically like caretaking other people and not really paying attention to their own internal set of boundaries and continuing to kind of steamroll their own boundaries, and then they kind of cross over into this territory of resentment and feeling exhausted and overextended and underappreciated or whatever. I've definitely more recently this year had experience with a friend where I actually allowed myself to go fully into that role. And was I being empathic? Absolutely. Was I being caring? Absolutely, to that other person. But then was I really taking care of myself in that moment? No, I had totally negated my own internal boundaries and just continued to kind of go into this like verging on like rescuer behavior. So I think once it crosses over into that territory, it becomes whatever, toxic, if you will.
Dysfunctional.
Dysfunctional. It's out of balance, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's why it really resonated for me. Hadn't really ever thought about that. And recently I was listening to this audiobook and the woman, she's a counselor who wrote it, and she goes, helping is the sunny side of control. And I was like, whoa. I was like, in my mind, helping and being empathic and kind and giving and generous and always like doing for others, that was just like, me being a good person, me being a loving friend or a loving spouse or a loving mom or whatever. Like, that's just what I did, even though simmering beneath the surface was feelings of resentment, or even darker, control. Like, because then if I really started to unpack the motivation behind it, was I actually helping to try to affect the outcome? So in certain situations, yes, I was being helpful because I wanted to have an impact on the outcome of the situation. And that's why that whole, helping is the sunny side of control. And I was like, oh boy, we went dark.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and that brings to mind as well when people talk about one of the shadow sides of people pleasing being manipulation.
Right.
And just for the record, it's unconscious. Like most people aren't like, oh, I'm gonna see
No,
what I can do. Yeah, it's all very unconscious, but it is manipulative. And like, I don't know, this is almost getting into like double negatives, the positive of the negative, whatever. But like, I also want to just give a little shout out to our, feeble attempts at self-care that get developed by our small little selves who don't really know a
sure.
lot about the world. Like it is, and I say this because a lot of people who struggle with boundaries receive this message that like you need to love yourself better. And I love, for me, it helps to recognize that it is self-care. It's just dysfunctional. Like,
Right.
because our nervous systems got wired to feel responsible, like when we're little, we need other people to be okay so that we can be okay. But when we grow up feeling responsible for that, that's when we end up with these like manipulative and control tactics where it's like, I literally need you to be okay so I can be okay. So I'm going to do whatever I can to like guide you into, for your own safety, which is really for my safety and not necessarily in their best interest.
Right. And I agree completely. It's totally unconscious.
Yeah.
I think why it's so powerful is because, at least for me, it's not something I ever questioned. I never looked at it through that lens until I took several steps back. And then I was like, oh gosh, I am trying to care for myself in this really roundabout, distorted way because in order for me to feel okay, I need that person to either feel or be okay, right? And so I'm going to do all these things. And of course, I'm not sitting there thinking, oh, I'm
Right. Scheming, consciously writing it down,
scheming.
making the plan. There was actually a recent instance of this. My mom is not great with boundaries. and I've been coaching my sister a lot. And I even admitted to her the other day, I was like, man, I give you mad props. Like, you are trying to find like the more nuanced path of staying engaged with her and maintaining your boundaries. My boundary is that I won't live near her. Like, they're 4 hours away from me. And like, that's my boundary. Like, I'm not going to try the more nuanced stuff. So I often tell her that like, hey, all of this advice I have for you is to try and help make your guys' relationship better, but I wouldn't even try it. I'm all the way out here. So, because she's always like, oh, this is such great advice. I'm like, yeah, but like, I'm not doing it. So, but in any case, it's been made clear that mom's not going to live with either of us. And I think mom like thinks that there's still a potential way to like, but maybe I could manipulate my daughters enough for this to happen. And we're both like, yeah, no. So my mom is also, shocker, poor boundaries, having financial issues. And she hinted at the solution possibly being moving in with my sister. My sister then calls me and asks if maybe I could lend her, my mom, some money to help with the situation. I was like, no, I'm not going to save her from her poor choices. She's a grown woman. If she were having financial issues because of things outside of her control, I might consider it, but it's not. It's because she makes poor choices. And it wasn't until later that I learned that it wasn't mom's idea to ask me for money. It was my sister's, because she was so uncomfortable saying no that she went trying to figure out how she can control the situation in a way where mom could be okay and it wouldn't have to infringe upon her boundaries, but she also wouldn't have to state her boundaries because she didn't want to say no. And when we both realized what was going on, we laughed. And it was just like, sometimes when you get that insight as to like what your subconscious is doing and the machinations that it will put together to avoid discomfort, it can be really incredible. I was like, man, like all of this, because she and I had this very lengthy conversation about options and boundaries and issues. And then my mom called me afterwards and we sorted some things out. And then I came to put the things together and I was talking to my sister again afterwards and it finally clicked. And I was like, wow, all of this could have been avoided if when mom said, I was thinking maybe I could move in with you, and you would have just said, no, that's not an option. Let's explore other options. And I wouldn't have had to get roped into it.
Right. But isn't it wild? Like, and of course, I'm sure your sister was not thinking
No,
about
she
it.
didn't
It was
realize
just
it.
all operating like unconsciously. She
Yes.
was like, I'm so uncomfortable saying no.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to try to fix or solve this problem
Yeah.
so that I can be okay saying no because I
Yeah.
have already provided an alternate
Yes.
solution and like fix this problem. And I'm gonna rope Mariya in and I'm gonna
Yeah.
do whatever. And God, how many times have I done something similar to that? Like
Mm-hmm. Oh, same.
a lot, a
Mm-hmm.
lot of the time.
Yep.
So I think having awareness around it, obviously, and humor too. Like, I
Sure.
think it's great that you guys just like totally laughed about it. And you're like, oh my gosh, did you just see me like run through all this entire obstacle course to try to make it all okay? Like,
It was hilarious too, because the moment she told me, like at the very beginning of the conversation, she's like, so I was talking to mom, she's having some financial issues. And I was like, what are you going to do? And she was like, I was thinking maybe live with you. And then my sister was like, gosh, I don't know. Like, I would have to really reflect on that a lot, have conversations with my husband about it. Um, and I stopped right there. I was like, what? I thought you were just gonna, I was expecting in this story for you to just say no, that the answer was gonna be no. We've had this conversation so many times. You and I are clear on the fact that it's no, it's never a good idea. We've expressed that to mom several times. Like, I can't believe that. I mean, I can believe, but I was a little bit surprised to hear as she was recounting the story and her interaction with my mom that she just, it wasn't a no from the bat. And then it spun out to all of those things. It's just funny.
I know it's really uncomfortable to say no.
We talked at length about that too, my sister and I, about, like many of us, she is very concerned about people's opinions of her. And it's never a blanket thing. Like there's always areas where we don't care. There are always certain people whose opinions don't matter. There are always certain things that we don't care if people have opinions about. But there's usually some areas where other people's opinions do impact us. They're generally the same places that we judge ourselves. And for my sister, it's really important to her that, you know, she feels like a good daughter and a good person. And so when other people that live around mom in her senior living community, sometimes they have to pitch in and help. And then they'll see my sister and kind of shame her sometimes for not being more helpful. And she'll tell me about that. And I'm like, you got to just shake it off. Like they don't know what it's like to be her daughter. They don't know what it's like to interact with someone who has, frankly, addictive patterns and addictive personality traits, and like what's involved in that and how they can be energetic vampires and how they will take and take, and there's literally no end. They will drain your life force dry. And we have to have some boundaries, and people can judge and they don't know, and it doesn't matter, and their opinions don't change the fact that we are doing the best that we can. And then, of course, when your mother is guilt tripping you about your boundaries, that makes it hard too.
Yeah, that's a fun one.
Mm.
The guilt trip of the
Yep.
boundaries.
Funny thing
Yeah.
too is when mom comes to me for things, I will be the coach instead of the rescuer. And I will say things like, cool, what are your options? Oh, here are some options and here are the outcomes. It looks like none of them are good. Which one do you want to choose? Whereas my sister will contort herself to try and like come up with a solution. And she's also very like reflexively, that rescue pattern is so reflexive, and that even when my mom will come to her with just sort of a complaint, you know, event, whatever, like this is a frustrating thing I'm dealing with, my sister will immediately be like, first she'll jump into kind of shaming her, like, oh, how did you get yourself in this situation? And B, what do I need to do to fix it? And I'm like, you got to stop doing that. You got to stop rescuing her. Like she's not, in a lot of cases, she's not even asking you for it. You're just diving in because you don't want to have to pick up the pieces later, which you also don't have to do.
Yep. And then it becomes a habituated pattern to just jump in and rescue people and do stuff for them that they A, didn't ask you to do, and B, totally capable of doing themselves, right? That's like another facet of the toxic empathy, if you will, right? Because now it's not good. It's toxic to you as the one who is doing the fixing of something you weren't asked to fix, because you're burning yourself out on it. And even worse is like robbing that other person of that opportunity to have their own learning moment and reap the rewards and the self-confidence that comes from, even if it's a mistake, even if they screw up, like they're going to learn something. And the fact that they handled it themselves is going to give them way more self-empowerment than if us as the fixers are just like reflexively jumping in and being like, I'm gonna make the problem disappear. I'm gonna make it disappear.
I will say too, though, that it's harder when you've had enough encounters with the person to be pretty confident that they don't actually have the skills or the ability to solve this problem on their own. And I think the challenge is being willing to let people fail.
Yeah, it's really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
There's like a lot of guilt and shame.
Mhm.
At least for me, those are the primary, and fear. Guilt, shame, fear. It's a trifecta.
Mhm.
It's a wonderful shit sandwich.
Yes.
No one wants to eat it. It sucks.
Oh, but we
It
do all the
feels
time.
awful.
We feed it to ourselves all the time.
Sure, we feed it to ourselves, but when it comes to like someone you love, someone you care about, and I think this is especially true for mothers and obviously daughters too. right? Like in my case, like I don't want my kid to suffer. And if I let her fail or make a mistake or fall on her face, then there's going to be a part of me that's like, oh God, I could have prevented it. Should I have prevented it? I could have. I could have fixed it. I could have swooped in, and I feel bad. And then I feel like, I don't know, like ashamed. Like, was I not a good mom enough to teach her these skills already? And then I'm like, of course, like I'm anxious and worried because, like, what if she doesn't figure it out? It's like the whole thing.
The
It's
whole
the whole
thing.
buffet of like heavy, gross, horrible emotions.
I think for me, one of the most important skills that I want to say developed, but I mean, it's still a work in progress, is understanding that we are more helpful by being present through the adversity that life delivers, rather than trying to
Hmm.
save people from the adversity that shapes character.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so when
Yeah.
we rush in to rescue people from, their problems or their challenges or life's lessons, we sort of rob them of that. And we, again, unconsciously, when we have that impulse, it's because we're operating from this lens of disempowerment. Like we are seeing them as not the sovereign, infinitely divine, powerful beings that they are. And it's really
Right.
easy to lose sight of it when they've lost sight of it. Like we then buy into their delusion of disempowerment. But if
Hmm.
we maintain that awareness, if we remember that every person is immensely powerful, then we can just show up and be like, oh, hey, queen, it looks like you tripped. How can we help you get your crown back? Instead of like, here, let me carry you.
Hmm. Yeah. I think that's a whole nother side of it because, like you said, when we jump in and we rescue, we are non-verbally communicating to that person, I actually don't think you can handle it. That's how much I think of you. Like this much. I don't have the faith in you that you actually can take care of this on your own. And so I'm sure on some level, the person who's being rescued feels like, oh, I don't have what it takes. And if that pattern continues long enough, it's like that learned hopelessness, right?
Sure.
So yeah, no, it's tricky. So awareness is got to be the key piece. And like, I mean, nowadays it's like I just got to like sit on my hands. I sit on my hands. I like zip it.
I think sometimes another sort of like fine-tune, finessing sort of skill that I aspire to is being able, like, I think it's appropriate, especially with people you consider friends, and that can be family or not. But if you notice that they're coming up to a potential pitfall, you can voice it. You can just say, hey, I noticed this thing, and I just wanted to see if I just want to check and see if you see it or if it's a concern of yours. Um, and they might be like, oh no, I didn't. What? And then you can maybe help them see it and then say, what do you want to do about it? What would support you? Or they can be like, yeah, I'm aware of it. I'm not too worried about it. And you can, in your head, silently say, wow, I would be way more worried about it, but I'm not going to worry for them. And I did my part. Like, that's it. You brought it up and then you have to let them take it from there.
Yeah, I'm telling you, it's the language.
Yeah.
It's like the language around that exact type of communication, which is why when we were doing our work with boundaries, I was like, what is the script? Like, what is the language around this? Because it's not something, at least it's not something I was taught in my family. Like, are you kidding me? I don't even know what you just said. Like, you could have just been speaking a completely foreign language to me just now. But like, hey, Mariah, I noticed there was this big like hole in the sidewalk, like about 10 feet down from where you're walking. I didn't know if you were aware that it was there or not, but just thought I would, share with you that I saw it, basically, right?
Yep. Yep.
Like, I didn't learn that from my parents.
Well, the interesting thing too, though, is like I've had people do that for me. And because I've done a lot of inner work and developed my awareness, I've had people do that for me, and I can instantly see the lens that they're viewing my path on. And I can be like, oh, yeah, it's actually it's an optical illusion. It's actually not a hole. I've I've done this before, and you, I think, have as well, but you had a very different outcome because of your background and your lenses and your conditioning. So thank you very much, and I'm good.
Right.
And of course, there have also been lots of times where like, oh crap, no, I didn't see that. Thank you so much.
Right. Right. Right.
Sometimes too, I might say, like, oh, I didn't see that at all. I know nothing about that. Please tell me what you know about that. What do you recommend? How do I go about it? What was you? And then sometimes too, there are answers for like how they would recommend going about it. Sometimes I'm like, yeah, that one doesn't resonate with me. And then I could, but now I have the information. At least I know the hole is there, and I can go talk to other people and be like, how have you managed this hole in your sidewalk? And kind of get some different perspectives. So it can also be helpful in terms of receiving help. It can be helpful to know ourselves well enough to be able to feel into what resonates, what feels aligned for us and what doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course, when we're the ones doling out the help, learning to trust that other people either have developed that or will, and that's not something that we can control for them.
Yeah, yes.
Mhm. Mhm.
The dark side of helping.
Oh yeah.
I like to, I think, at one point, it was in a conversation you and I were having, and you said, well, would you like my take on this? Right? It's not like, oh, here's what I would do, or here's what I think, or here's my advice to you. It's like, hey, I have something to share with you if you would like to hear it. Like, and then it's like, oh, huh, do I want to get some advice on this? Didn't even think so. Yes, tell me what that is. But I think that's also really good practice for anyone, like us, who really does care about people, who really is empathic, who does want to see people succeed and help people. And sometimes, I have been guilty of it. I just will launch right into how you need to fix it. I'll just go right there. I won't ask you if it's cool for me to tell you how to live your life. I'll just be like, oh no, here's what you got to do. And I'm going to solve all the problems. Right. So I think that's actually a really great trick, because it allows the person who's wanting to kind of like impulsively help to get some feedback and slow it down so that it just doesn't becomes quite so automatic for both, right? The receiver and the giver.
Yeah. And in fact, it's interesting because, and also speaking of the dark side, like it can also be a sneaky manipulation tactic. And I say this with an awareness of the irony and a sincere belief in the actual benevolence of it. When you ask someone, would you like my advice? Or, can I share? Are you open to? Especially if they're a people pleaser, like most people are, they're more likely to say yes than be boundaried and
Oh,
be like, no, thank you. And when they say yes, they're more likely to actually receive it because subconsciously they now have buy-in.
right.
And so, assuming that your advice actually is good, it is good for them to ask if they want it, because then they say yes, then they're bought in, then it gets into their brain a little bit better and they're more likely to implement it.
Yeah, I haven't thought about it like that.
I might be a crazy person, but And then on the flip side, when you receive an offer like that, by all means, take the moment to check in with yourself and be like, do I want outside input on this? Maybe I don't. And then just trust, again, that the other person will be fine if you're like, no, I'm okay right now. And then they could just be like, okay. And then if that's you who wants to give some advice and the person says, no, thank you, you have to be okay with it and honor that and be like, okay. Oh God, I want to say it so bad. But you just got to be like, okay, they don't want it. And sometimes it helps to remember too that like, if they don't want it, they're not going to receive it, so can't
Right.
force feed them.
No.
To take that skill a little bit further though, I really like this concept, and it's, I don't know, an assignment that we can all take on, or I should say aim to take on, because I forget all the time. Some people say it's one person's role and some people say it's the others. I feel like it could be either's. So if we're all practicing it, then at least as long as one person says it, it's okay. So you got person A that is like venting or having an issue, and then you've got person B who is the support. One version is venter starts venting, and then the receiver says, do you just want to be heard right now? Do you just want some, a shoulder to cry on and some empathy? Or do you want to do some problem solving? And then the person can check in with themselves and be like, oh, what do I want right now? And then they can decide. There's a really cute little cartoon I see floating around the internet every once in a while. And the person says, actually, can I have empathy first and then we can problem solve? But you can also, as the venter, go into something. And here's another layer of consent. Hey, can I vent to you for a little bit? Do you have a moment to receive? I don't really just want to like trauma dump on you, but like
You're right. You're right.
I'm having a moment, and can I share it with you? And to be clear, I don't really want any input or suggestions or advice about it. I just kind of want to be heard. Or I'm coming to you with this problem. Are you available to help me kind of come up with some solutions? So you can lay that out at the front. Or if the venter doesn't do that, then the receiver can ask which one they want. But either way can really help clarify those kinds of things.
That's really interesting. I had probably gone like the first 40, maybe 45 years of my life not doing that. And in the last few years, I forget if someone started doing it with me. And I was like, that is just so brilliant. I was like, because I appreciated it so much because, you know, sometimes, and I love being there for all my friends, right? Don't get me wrong. I love it. But sometimes I just don't feel like I have the energy. And there were some friends who have now been pruned from my life who would not ask. They would just call, and I kind of knew that if I picked up the phone, I would hear about whatever it was for the next 60 minutes. And I didn't always have the energy to just like be a real active listener for 60 minutes because that's really intense. It takes a lot of like energy, focus, and concentration. And so I've started now with my girlfriends when I am like really steamed about something and I just need to like I need to be witnessed. Like I need someone to witness me and be like, yeah, you're having a hard time. Like I can see that. I understand why. And that's it. Like not be like, here's how you could fix it or whatever. But I try always to preface and be like, I'll text. I'll be like, hey, do you have like 10, 15 minutes? I just really need to vent about something. If you don't, it's cool, but I'm just like asking first before I pick up the phone and start just like going. And then that way they can text me back and be like, well, in their mind, like now is a really bad time. Or yeah, how about 6 o'clock tonight? Why don't you give me a call then? And I'll be in a place where I can just listen to you just like blow your stack. Right. And it's great.
Yeah.
Better that way.
Yeah. I've had to train some of my friends as well to not give unsolicited advice. Like sometimes I just need a space to vent. And And some of my closest friends have gotten really good at just like when I vent, they're like, man, I feel for you. That sounds rough. And it's like, it's so funny too, because as a people pleaser, someone, the rescuer type, the kind like we need everyone to be okay. Like it feels so insufficient to respond that way too. Like, because I had been
Right.
training myself as well to not run in with advice for people. If they just vent, I'm just like, wow, that seems really rough. I'm so sorry. And they just leave it at that. If they want help, they can ask for it. And they know that too, that I will absolutely show up. It's sometimes I still give it unsolicited. I try not to, but work in progress. But it really can feel very insufficient to just be like, I hear you. That sounds rough. And the thing
To
is, like,
us, to the helper,
yeah,
to the receiver, but in reality, that's exactly what that person needs.
yes,
It's
it
crazy, right?
it feels energy is so potent. Also, like if you were actually brushing me off with like, wow, that sucks. Sorry, moving on. Like you can feel that versus like I'm really receiving you. And that's the gift is I'm listening, I'm hearing you, I'm witnessing you. I see you in this and it's rough.
Yeah.
Versus like I'm multitasking, whatever. I don't know, that sucks for you. Moving on, like you can it can be via text and it can be the exact same words, but the energy comes through, man, I tell you.
Mm-hmm.
Um
It totally does.
and of course it's through the relationship as well that you get to know the person and whether or not they're actually paying attention. But circling back though to that empathy without boundaries, the funny thing about the rescuer pattern, speaking of buzzwords, it's kind of in a loose sense of the word narcissistic because the rescuer, again, with that like enabling that delusion of disempowerment, we see ourselves as like the only person that can help them. Like they can't help themselves, but I can help them. I must be the one to come in and rescue them and save them from themselves. And
Yeah.
it's such a heightened view of ourselves that again, on a subconscious level, we're carrying, but we are the hubris to think that we can be the one to solve other people's problems for them. And maybe we have tricked ourselves into thinking that we can because we've had these instances where we've fixed and helped people. But I always think about that. Give a man a fish, feed him for a day, teach him how to fish, feed him for life kind of thing. It's like the rescuer pattern, again, on a subconscious level, is driven by this need to find purpose and meaning through being helpful and through people needing you. And so the help that we give is very superficial and it doesn't actually help them build a foundation to help themselves because no, we need them to stay reliant on us because if people don't need us, then what are we?
We cease to exist.
Yeah.
Also, I love this stair step idea where you have the rescuer and then the savior and then like God. Like, you know what I mean? It's like in some weird way, unconscious or not, it's like a ego trip.
Mm-hmm.
It's a massive ego trip to think like I'm all powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Like you were saying, I'm the only one who knows how to possibly solve this person's problems. They couldn't possibly solve their own problems. They're totally incapable or whatever. Like, right? This whole like, no, we're not God. But yeah, it is kind of a total ego trip. And I think that's all running unconsciously
Absolutely.
underneath the surface of that too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, and to your
Um,
point, when I said, what are we if people don't need us? And then you said,
yeah.
we cease to exist.
Yeah.
That's literally the definition of an ego death. Like
Right.
if
Ego
you,
annihilation.
yeah, if you let that view of you die, that's an ego death. And the beautiful thing about ego deaths is they don't equal human death. You don't die. Like that part of you can die and you can be an actually helpful person instead.
Right. Yep.
And I will also just add a little bit of compassion for the experience where it's almost like the Cassandra syndrome. I think, Greek or Roman character. She was gifted and cursed simultaneously with the ability to like see the future, but that no one would ever believe her. So she was running around giving all of these like true prophecies, and everyone's like, no, you're just crazy. And then the things would happen. And then she would like, I tried to tell everybody. So when you see someone heading for a hole in the sidewalk, and especially if you fell in that same freaking hole, you like, it is so hard to just let them do it. And then like, especially if they ever find out that like, I don't know if this happens or if this is just the story we tell ourselves, but I'm certainly familiar with this storyline. How can I live with myself if I let them fall in that pit? And even if I don't say anything, but like maybe they'll find out later and then be like, how could you just let me fall in that pit? Like if you knew and you didn't say anything, now you're a horrible person. And so that's why I find that the nice balance is just being like, hey, just want to let you know there's a pit there. If you want my help about it, I'm here. If you don't, have fun. And that's my like disclaimer buffer for like the future potential retaliation.
It's like guilt insurance.
Yes.
You're like, I'm going to take out some guilt insurance so I don't feel bad. And they can't come back and be like, you didn't say anything. So just a heads up, I'm just going to say it's there. If you want some rope, I got some, but you know, you do you. Don't say I didn't warn you.
It's interesting, as a coach, I've been coaching for 10 years, and it's been a journey, and it's been an evolution as well. And along my journey, I learned about this whole rescuer pattern and started seeing it in me and where and how I do it. And it has really changed how I coach. I almost stopped coaching. Well, I kind of took a break for a minute because I was like, oh, is all of my drive and impulse to coach, is it all rescuing? And I came to find that it wasn't all, but there was a lot of that in there. And I had to like strip that out so that when I show up to coach, it's really about empowerment. And it's interesting how like throughout the rest of my life, it has really helped me just step back a little bit more and like I said, kind of let people fail, and just recognizing that we can be so much more helpful by, like I said, just holding space, witnessing, being present for people than rescuing them and getting into that like really dysfunctional sort of codependent dynamic.
Totally.
And we think that that's the helpful way to be, but
Yep.
it's not. So tying this back into the empathy without boundaries, especially in a close relationship, I also just, I don't know, want to offer a little bit of empathy to anyone listening who has been in one of those quote unquote toxic or dysfunctional or mildly, moderately, or more emotionally abusive relationships. We tend to stay in them. Those of us who are really insightful and empathetic, we tend to stay in them because we understand what they're going through. We feel like they deserve to be loved. We know that their outbursts aren't personal. And I just want to say, I did that for several years, and I'm here to say it's not necessary. I did it for the rest of us. We don't need to continue to do that. I learned that I can have all of that awareness, and I'm still a human. I'm not a saint. And when we receive that constant flow of like contempt and criticism, it still gets into our subconscious mind, and it's damaging. We can consciously be as empathetic and supportive as we want, but it is going to have a detrimental impact if we continue to expose ourselves to it. And I maintained my empathy and compassion, though. Like at no point did I run around calling him an abuser, throwing him under the bus publicly. And I just realized that it was healthier for both of us to part ways. And getting a little bit more, deep here, what really did it for me, what really helped me break the tie, because it was hard. I really do believe that he deserves love. And I came to accept my limitations and the fact that he is drowning in his trauma, and me staying with him, I was just going to drown with him. I wasn't going to be able to save him. He's the only one that can save himself. If that's even possible in this lifetime. I've also come to terms with the fact that not all wounds can be healed in one lifetime. He's done a lot of impressive work and progress in that area. And I don't know that he'll ever be capable of a healthy relationship. But I certainly wasn't capable of being in a healthy relationship with him. And when I realized that part of his pattern was because of his self-loathing and self-abuse, he was sort of using me as like a blunt instrument to beat himself up with, because he would trigger me and we would get into fights and I would say things that I don't like. And I did all of the work I could to be less triggered, but he wasn't doing the work with me. And the fights never got healthier. The repairs never happened. The conflict never became more constructive. And so when I learned that I was being complicit in the abuse, I like recoiled. To this day, I love and care about this human. And when I started seeing that I was not only allowing myself to receive abuse from him, but that I was participating in abuse of him, that was when I was very clear that we could not stay together, that because I loved him, I needed to leave. And again, I didn't do it with spiked walls. I ditched the flimsy fences and I didn't flip over to spiked walls. I learned how to install selective gates, and I spent a year, which hopefully isn't necessary for most people, but I spent a year like gradually building a foundation to step out onto, and gradually distancing and like surgically removing the romantic aspect from our relationship so that we could stay friends, so that we could maintain the nonprofit we started together, so that like I didn't want to blow everything up. And it is possible. I feel like I single-handedly consciously uncoupled us. And I just want to say you can have empathy and boundaries. And for those of us who are really empathetic, I also want to reinforce this sense that you probably have, that love is unconditional. Relationships are not. And it's not the same thing. You can love someone and leave them. Those are not mutually exclusive things. That's it.
I love that. That's one of my favorite Mariyaisms. Love that. Yeah.
That is what the boundaries are for.
Yeah. I don't know the data points on this or the statistics. I just have a hunch that probably women as a whole are more prone to falling into that trap of the toxic empathy, just because of the way that we have been culturally acculturated, I guess, and our roles in our society already as caretakers, already as nurturers, already as the ones who listen and are empathic, that just and in addition, I think that there's like a whole subset of other people in the population who maybe, like myself, grew up in like a family of origin where there was some kind of addiction. Like in my case, was my dad with alcoholism, where the helping, the rescuing, the empathy was kind of like a survival skill that just got really distorted unconsciously over time as like a way to, like you said way at the beginning of this conversation, as a way to try to care for myself, as a way to try to keep myself safe. Was it misguided? Yeah. Did I know any better? No. Like, was it like ultimately like the most skillful way to do it? No. Did I ultimately end up like also damaging myself? Sure. But again, like it was the tool that I knew had no idea there were other tools, had no idea this tool was a little bit bent and maybe not the right one, but that's what I had, right, to work with. And so I think in no way is like talking about toxic empathy, at least I don't think either of us, it's not like a shaming thing,
Right,
there's
right,
nothing to be ashamed of. Like, we've
right,
all done it. It's
right.
all about the awareness piece. I mean, like, oh yeah, I've now like tipped over this invisible line in the sand to this
Yeah.
other area,
Well, I also I think it's helpful to view it in the sense of coping mechanisms that help you get through a dysfunctional relationship or scenario. Those mechanisms become dysfunctional in healthy or functional relationships and scenarios.
Right.
So maybe it wasn't the best, but it was effective. Like it worked in that dysfunctional dynamic. But
Hmm.
then you like create dysfunctional dynamics by bringing that coping mechanism into other situations.
Right. It's like you carry it forward.
Yeah.
Yeah. Weird how that happened.
Well, I mean, the human mind is kind of wired to just maintain the status quo. Even if it was horrible, if it didn't kill us, let's just keep doing it.
Homeostasis.
Yeah. Why take a risk on something else that might fail? Like this one got us to reproductive age. We were able to reproduce, so we'll just keep doing that, whatever, even if it's really dysfunctional.
That's right.
And here we are in the human race.
That's
Um,
right.
so speaking of dysfunctional families, dynamics, etc., I know it's seemingly far off at this point, but the holidays are coming again, as they do every year. And Thanksgiving being the first of the sequence of them comes up in November. And if anyone listening has some issues with healthy boundaries and their families and often feels really stressed, overwhelmed, overextended, resentful around all that they do during the holidays, I would say that now is probably the better time to start building some foundations for that. So I do offer coaching around developing healthy boundaries. Alina can attest to it.
Oh
Um,
yeah. Totally worth it. You'll never have a better holiday season than one in which you are prepared with healthy boundaries. Seriously, it just makes it all that much better and less stressful.
what?
Yep.
Can you even imagine a less stressful Thanksgiving?
Yeah, with some good boundaries, actually, absolutely.
Good. Well, for anyone listening, go to explorelovingboundaries.com and you can grab a spot on my calendar for a free call. I'll just hold some space, listen to what you're going through, and offer some solutions. They range from free resources to referrals to various DIY offerings or working directly with me. So thank you to my listeners. And thank you again, Alina, my first repeat guest.
It was great. Thanks for having me. I always love talking to you, and I always get such great insights having these conversations and nuggets of wisdom. And now I've got some stuff to practice when I leave here
Yay.
today.
Aw, good. I love speaking with you again, and I look forward to welcoming you back for a future episode.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for having me. Bye.
Bye. So good. We totally geek out on this stuff together, even off the show. I actually had a couple other points that I lost track of and wanted to make sure I include. For an additional incentive to ease up on the urge to deliver unsolicited advice, it's helpful to notice how off putting and almost invalidating it can feel to come to someone with something you're struggling through and have them try to fix it when you really just needed empathy. And sometimes even that can be hard to recognize in ourselves. But once I became aware of that, it really motivated me to be more conscientious about doing that disservice to others. In addition, learning to appreciate the journey over the destination has really helped me be more present in my friendships and less fixie, even with friends who are perpetually trapped in a dysfunctional pattern, like a bad relationship or job. I no longer feel frustrated by their persistent stuckness and that sense of urgency for them to get out of it and be okay. I just bear witness, offer empathy and gentle suggestions while meeting them where they're at and loving them through their own process, which is just going to take the time and course that it takes. The human experience is so much richer than any state of perfection we might wish for our loved ones. I just don't feel the need to fix people anymore because I've truly come to respect the divinity in everyone's journey and to trust in their sovereign right to navigate it. I now see my role as less about solving and more about supporting, with no agenda about the outcome. This shift has brought so much more peace to my life and so much more depth and safety to my relationships. That being said, as a coach, it's a different kind of container where we're both enrolled in getting you to your goal. Again, if you'd like to explore working together, go to explorelovingboundaries.com and grab a spot on my calendar for a free call, no charge, no strings. I guarantee you'll walk away with at least a little more clarity. And do it now while it's on your mind. Your future self will thank you. Namaste.